Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Sunday night stream with Whiskey and Lipstick Ladies Night.
Woohoo!
I am Sarra from the Whiskey Crusaders.
And I'm Theresa, the Canadian Whiskey Smith.
And I am,
Go ahead.
Well, I'm Heather Wibbles, also known as the Cocktail Contessa, and I am chair of Bourbon Womem Association in the U.S.
And we have had Heather on before, and we have had such a good time with Heather. And we decided we wanted to have her back on. We're going to do a cocktail, but we want to talk a little bit more about the Bourbon Women this go round, since, we are a bunch of ladies. Yeah. So, we've got a couple people joining us in on the chat here. We got Steve A. and Donna Pass Whiskey, John Kranz. Adriana's in. Adriana's got her own little channel out there. You should definitely go and check that out. I'm surprised she's signed in under her name and not under her channel's name.
What's her channel?
I just had a brain fart.
Sorry.
Adriana, drop it in the what's your...
I had a brain fart. Forgive me.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Sorry about that.
You totally did. And I just watched the video. I just watched the video of hers the other day. And where is it? There's Sugar Kitty. Hi, Sugar Kitty. Welcome.
Whiskey Mountains.
Whiskey Mountains. There you go. I knew it was
Gotcha.
Mountains. She's on her phone. I knew it was mountains because she's in Utah. So, sorry. It's Adriana. I always forget. It's Adriana. Thank you, William.
Hey, Renata.
My husband's in here in the chat there, sitting out in the garage. Sugar Kitty, Team Whiskey Cats. Hi, Renita.
Yeah.
I finally got to chat with her a little bit at the Bachelor's Ball. That was nice. But let's go ahead and get started. Are we going to start with our cocktail first?
I think we should. And I was so excited because I had already been thinking that a hot beverage would be a nice departure for us, because we did like old fashions the first time, and then we did smashes, and I'm like, it's winter, we should have a hot beverage. And then I said, well, Heather, what are you thinking? And she's like, well, I was thinking maybe a toddy. And then you told me what it was going to be called, and I'm like, well, it's just kismet, because we are doing the lipstick cider toddy, and we're whiskey and lipstick, so I feel like you're pandering. Maybe
it's just fitting. Totally fitting.
Well, toddies are so flexible that you can just tweak a couple ingredients and give it a new name. And since you all are whiskey and lipstick, I wanted to use lipstick in the title. So of course it's the lipstick toddy. But
I'm excited.
For toddies, a traditional toddy is really whiskey, a sweetener, and hot water. It's not complicated. It's super simple. But I am in love this season with hot cider toddies. So the base of the cocktail, the bulk of the cocktail is going to be hot cider. And this is really going to be a lot tastier if you use fresh apple cider than if you use apple juice. And Theresa had emailed me when I gave her the recipe, and she said, is this alcoholic cider or non-alcoholic cider? I said, well, if you
I'm like, do I pick up Strongbow? And
I know. If you want it really strong, you could use, alcoholic hard cider. But really, a toddy is designed just to have a little bit of whiskey in it. And the thing that I think, as a whiskey drinker, as a bourbon drinker, I love high proof spirits in my cocktails. But if you use a high proof spirit in a toddy, the heat makes it much more alcoholic, and it'll burn a lot more. And it's just not a very fun experience. So for toddies, really, I like to stick between like 85, 90, 95 proof. For this one, I'm actually going to use Old Forester 86 because I don't have that many whiskeys that are under 95 proof, actually. Samesies. Okay. Yeah. So one of the things we discovered actually at Bourbon Women is that women really do prefer higher proof spirits, bourbons. And we had a his and hers sort of blind tasting with a bunch of different Heaven Hill products. And everybody came in and ranked them. And what they found was women ranked the higher proof spirits as higher in terms of like excellent, good, fair, average, so on and so forth. They ranked it with a higher rating of how much they loved it when you compared it to the men.
Yeah.
And so,
so
we
there's
thought
some
maybe
science behind this.
So there is some science behind it, And so, I always thought that was interesting because for years I was trying to get my husband to drink bourbon and he just hated it. And I finally gave him some 80, 86 proof stuff. He's like, wow, this is really good. What's different? I'm like, oh, I need to give you a little bit lower proof when you start your bourbon journey. A lot of people start bourbon with, a very low proof spirit. But over time, you get used to that higher proof and there's more flavor, there's more nose. I mean, you can really delve into a lot of complexities that are there more when it's higher proof. So,
I agree.
So where are we starting on building this thing? I've got my jigger and my I'm in Canada, so of course I have a jug of maple syrup hanging around. So,
well, I will go through the ingredients first. Is it Kirkland?
Okay. It's Kirkland.
I expected
just
you to
go
have
to Costco
up there.
Well, I could, but
you didn't go out back and tap it from the tree.
Well, I thought about doing that, but who has time?
All right. So, in addition to your apple cider, I have my apple cider. Hang on, heated up, and actually I have a little Four Roses tin, but it's heated up in here. Really, what you want to do before you do anything is fill up your cup with hot water. I don't actually have any because I'm not in the kitchen, but you would fill this up with hot water to warm the glass before we start. So in addition to that, I'm going to have maple syrup. Can you all see that? I have the Pappy's bourbon barrel aged maple syrup. And this stuff is really wonderful in cocktails. It looks drippy because I only really use it for cocktails. And then I've got a huge bottle of Old Forester 86, which I'll use as the base. And for this recipe, you're also going to need some caramel liqueur. I'm using Balaton's Caramel Turtle. The big thing with the caramel liqueur we're going to use here is it can't be a creamy liqueur. It can't be something like Bailey's. It can't be a salted caramel liqueur that has a cream base. So anything like a salted caramel whiskey, caramel vodka, perfect. Both of those will work. Yeah.
I've got a sample of some Old Smoky.
That's perfect.
Oh,
Old Smoky is really good. Yeah, they've got good stuff. I've also got my lemon. I'm going to squeeze some fresh lemon juice. And for bitters,
I went the cheap way.
Perfect. For bitters, now I'm going to tell you that I always tell people to make cocktails with fresh juice.
Yeah.
And it really makes a difference when you're making it. This is going to be hot, so it's not going to be as important, but really, if you can have fresh juice on hand and make cocktails, it'll make a world of difference in your cocktails. The same reason you would really want to serve somebody a really good bourbon, you want to make sure you use fresh juice in the cocktails. I'm going to geek out on cocktails like you guys geek out on whiskey, so that's good. So for bitters, I'm going to have Old Forester's Smoked Cinnamon Bitters, which are some of my absolute favorite bitters. And then I also have this let's see, Scrappy's has cardamom bitters. Now, cardamom is kind of a polarizing ingredient, right? So some people don't really like cardamom very much. I happen to love it, and it makes me think of all things winter. So those are the ingredients to have on hand. So we're going to say that I have warmed up the mug in advance. I didn't have hot water, and then I don't know where I would pour it if I did. So we're going to build the alcoholic and contents first, and then we're going to add the lemon juice, and then we're going to add the hot apple cider. So let's start with a 1/4 ounce of the maple syrup.
I tried to find my clear mugs, and I think I still have them packed from a couple of years ago.
Uh-huh.
So I borrowed one of my roommates.
That's perfect. I love it. I love it. All right. Perfect. So a 1/4 ounce of the maple syrup. We're going to do a 1/2 ounce of the caramel liqueur. Whatever kind you will end up with. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And we've got a local distillery up here that does a buttered tart schnapps. And butter tarts are, if you've ever, you guys know what butter tarts are, right?
It's like
Everybody
a butter
knows
kuka, right? It's like
yeah,
a pastry.
Yeah, with like raisin and caramel and just good tasting stuff. So
Yummy
that was
stuff.
half an ounce of that, right? Half an ounce of
Half
the
an ounce,
liqueur.
yeah.
And then we're going to put a half ounce of lemon juice in there. I'm just going to squeeze half of a lemon because that'll be right about half an ounce for the size that I have.
I was squeezing lemons before I came downstairs because I didn't prepare ahead of time.
Can't fucking get mine open.
If you had a regular lemon, you could just cut it in half.
I squeezed 2 lemons worth of lemon juice because I had a feeling I might want to make more than one toddy. I did this
half ounce. Mm-hmm.
I made this for my roommate and I when I was making up my cider, my mulled apple juice the other night. I'm like, okay, I got to test out this cocktail, and we both just loved it. So
Isn't
like,
it good?
all right.
So you're going to use 1.5 ounces of your whiskey. I'm going to use Old Forester bourbon for this one.
I'm using some Weller 12 because that's like one of the only things I have in my house that's 90 proof.
I've got one called American Rockies, which is an independent bottling of a Wyoming.
You said 1.5 ounces?
Mm-hmm.
Don't spill.
And I am just going to use my cinnamon stick to kind of stir it around a little bit.
I didn't get one of those.
And if you all have a spoon, use a spoon. My spoon's in the other room right now. Okay. All right. Are you guys caught up so far? I'm getting ready to put the bitters in.
Oh, I haven't put okay, good.
Okay, so in the glass right now, you should have 1/4 ounce of maple syrup, 1/2 ounce of lemon juice, 1/2 ounce of the caramel liqueur, 1.5 ounces of the bourbon. Okay. And we're getting ready to stir it up, and then we're going to get ready to add some of the bitters. I'm going to add the equivalent of 2 dashes of the cinnamon bitters.
I've got the orange bitters.
Ooh,
cinnamon.
They will be wonderful.
And I couldn't find cinnamon, but I've got one. Again, we've got a local producer that makes all these different ones, and I tried it out with their black and blue, which is kind of a spicy type bitter. So how much are you doing?
I put 2 dashes in, and I'm going to put 5 drops of the Scrappy's Cardamom Bitters because the cardamom can be pretty strong. So I think that's going to be the best way to do it. So once you have all that in there, you can pour in your hot cider. I'm just going to bring it up, to maybe like 1 centimeter from the top because we're going to top it with whipped cream and fresh nutmeg.
Okay. I've got a cinnamon liqueur from somewhere, and figure I'll put a little
bit of that in there.
Yeah, just random amounts. All right, so now we're just pouring in our cider.
Pour in your hot cider. Give it a little stir. Oh, it smells so good. Can you all smell it?
It really does.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh. And if you want to go all out, I'm going to put whipped cream on the top. You do not have to. In fact, I'm going to do a taste test real quick. Oh, that's good. So the caramel liqueur that I'm using has a little bit of nut in it because the caramel turtle has a little bit of pecan in it. So this is a little nutty and a little caramel. What do you think?
That's good.
Is it too sweet?
No, that's actually right kind of on.
Yeah.
All right.
I when you have apple juice.
Go ahead. I was going to ask if there's a trick to doing whipped cream so it doesn't make a mess, but I'll let you say what you're going to say.
And then...
There's not, in pictures, a lot of people will actually use shaving cream instead of whipped cream if you do a picture because shaving cream won't melt like whipped cream will. So when I'm taking a picture, if I do whipped cream, I only have maybe 10 or 15 seconds to take the picture before the entire thing melts. Yeah. So
William just came in and took a drink, and he said he could drink like 10 of those.
All right. So I love to put fresh nutmeg on my toddy. So I have got a little nutmeg, just a little nutmeg grater. It's got some fresh nutmeg in it because I was making cocktails with it last night. So I'm just going to put some fresh nutmeg on the top and stick in my cinnamon stick. Doesn't that look pretty? You guys see?
Yes.
So
You can't
pretty.
see mine, but it tastes fucking good.
As long as it tastes good, that's all that matters.
I had to get a picture of mine, even though all I can see is whipped cream. But
All I can see is whipped cream too. But
Let me.
oh hey, William just handed me some nutmeg. Sprinkle, sprinkle.
Oh,
sprinkle.
perfect. Let me see if I can get a picture of the cocktail with you guys in the background.
So if anybody wants to try this after the fact, if you don't have the ingredients and you're interested because it tastes really fucking good, we did post the ingredients in our posts on Instagram and on Facebook and Discord under Whiskey Crusaders. Check it out. It's really, really fucking good.
This is one that I love to do in virtual demonstrations right now because it's all stuff you can easily get and it's not hard to find.
Yep.
The only challenge really is that caramel liqueur. And usually what I tell people is if they can't find a caramel liqueur, they can find a nut liqueur. Sometimes nut liqueurs will have that kind of caramel flavor to them. So yeah.
Agreed.
So,
well, and this is, I mean, I think Phillips is pretty well distributed. At least they are up here in Canada, and they do all kinds of liqueur. I mean, they call it Schnapps, but it's a liqueur.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the things that get labeled as moonshine, those flavored moonshines are really like they're liqueurs is what they are, right?
Smoky.
So
I mean, yeah. Steve A just dropped the Discord link for anybody who's not in the Discord. Go check it out. There's all the whiskey things happening in there all the time. All the time.
it just tastes like apple juice.
It really does.
really.
and for William to say that he could drink like 10 of those, it's got to be really good because he's not really a juice type of like apple fan, really. So it must be really good. He likes it.
well, so this one would be really easy to make in a crock pot for a party. Okay. So you can take the same ingredients, you ramp up everything but the bitters up to the volume that you want, right? So
Right.
if you're going to make it for 12 people, 12 cups of apple cider, that would be, a half cup of, be 3/4 a cup of the caramel liqueur and the lemon juice. And then maybe a little more than a 1/4 cup of the maple syrup, mix it up and then put bitters in to taste. Probably about half the amount of bitters that you would normally put if you do just straight multiplication. So, this would be perfect to put in a crock pot if you're going to have a bunch of people over for,
I was just going to say that would be totally something you could do, right? You just,
And when you're having a party, the best thing about crock pot like toddies this time of year is they taste good. They make the house smell absolutely amazing, right? So as soon as somebody walks in the door, they can tell you've got it going. It smells wonderful. You put a little bit of fresh nutmeg on top of it. You don't really even need the whipped cream.
Right.
But if you put that fresh nutmeg on top, it makes the scent just kind of explode when you take a sip.
and I guess too, like if you were doing a mixed evening of, where you had kids and, adults together at the party, you could like mix up your bourbon with the bitters and the liqueur and have that as sort of a separate in a bottle and just say, like add, 2 ounces of this, top it off with the cider that's sitting in the crock pot or on the stove.
That's exactly what I would do. I take my old, like for example, if this was empty, like I have a Woodinville, this is really apple flavor. So this one, it's a single barrel from Woodinville. It's absolutely wonderful from my Westport Whiskey and Wine near me. But this, you could take an empty bottle of this, fill it up with the alcoholic mix that goes on top. And just, if you wanted an alcoholic drink, you could add the alcohol. If you just want a really great apple cider, you could throw some mulling spices in it and it'll taste fabulous.
Yep.
Well, and I know Renita was saying about, she's the one who does she's in charge of cocktails for her mom's Christmas party or something. I can't remember exactly what she said, but like this is something that's totally easy to do. And I mean, last time we talked about doing batched old fashions. Again, like some of these things, it doesn't have to be complicated. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of different little ingredients, but throw it in a mug, stir, add whipped cream.
Yeah,
I know.
It's not hard at all.
And you know, the one thing that you have to remember when you're making something with a hot toddy with a sweet element is that lemon juice has to be there to cut down on the sweetness, because otherwise it could be, you know how something's so sweet it makes your teeth kind of gritty? You could get something that sweet if you don't balance it with a citrus like the lemon.
That makes sense.
Which is, I guess, why people do like the oranges with the cloves when you make your mulled ciders or mulled whatevers. I never thought about that. That's
yeah. Well, if you think about orange oil itself, orange oil is bitter, right? It's the essential. It's that oil when you express an orange peel on a cocktail. It tastes like orange, but it's also bitter. So it's the same reason when you do a smash and you're muddling the orange with the cocktail, you're getting that bitter element in there that cuts down on the sweetness. So if you think about balancing flavors, sweetness can really be balanced by either bitter or sour flavors. And in this case, we did both. We added bitters and we added a little bit of sourness. And both of those things keeps it from being too, the sugar, the sweetness from being too loud. But it's still kind of a decadent drink.
It is. I got to give a shout out there to Donald, because I do that as well. I've got a recipe that my mom always made. And yeah, I totally make Irish cream, put it into little bottles and hand it out to friends.
You know what I do is I pick whatever my favorite old fashioned is. Like last year, I really liked doing chai tea syrup old fashioned. So I brewed really strong chai tea. I use that as the sweetener, and just a regular old fashioned with 100 proof bourbon. It was probably Old Forester 100 to tell you the truth, and the smoked cinnamon bitters. And I batched it. And when I went to a party or to visit somebody for their gift, I would just give them a bottle of batched old fashions. And actually I just wrote up the method that I used to make it on my website. So if you go to cocktailcontessa.com, you'll see at the top, there's how to batch a cocktail for a party. And it's a really easy method. Basically I turn ounces into cups. That's it. Right. And you make a batch of 8 to 10. That's it. I mean, it's super simple.
These are dangerous.
Yes, they are.
Throw that out there. I mean, yeah.
It's like having a hug on the inside.
You got your 90 proof whiskey, and then you got your 60 proof liqueur, and they go down so smoothly.
See, I should have brought a cinnamon stick for stirring, because...
Well, I should have brought a bar spoon. I have 8 in the other room. I have every imaginable color of bar spoon you might possibly want, and they're just all in the other room. I forgot to bring them in.
So if I had my clear cups, if I could have found my clear teacups, which I couldn't, but that's okay, because I'm a fucking ray of sunshine. Or I'm a ray of fucking sunshine. I've started drinking. I can't enunciate. But one of the things I had thought about doing is, like, when you go to Starbucks and they do like the fancy swirl of the caramel syrup on the inside of the glass, and I'm like, I could probably do that. Maybe, and I thought, well, maybe the maple wouldn't go quite like that. But if you had like a caramel syrup or something that was a little bit denser, or you could do the sweetener on that, so it clings to the glass and then just sort of dissolves in as you go, or as you stir, it's gonna mix in. I'm like, there's so many ways you could like just have fun. But.
And you can make it as fancy or as easy as you want. I mean, you really don't need the caramel liqueur. I just like the nutty notes in with the apple cider.
I like it too.
Yeah. It's and in fact, when I make it for myself, sometimes I actually add Amaro. Are you guys familiar with Amaro?
I've heard of it, but I haven't used it.
It's a bittersweet liqueur, and it's usually kind of a lower ABV, and it's used as an aperitif or a digestivo in Italy, right? So it's like Averna is a common one, Montenegro, and sometimes Campari exactly is one of them. You can just add a little bit of that to this as well, and it makes it bitter and more complex. A lot of people have to get used to drinking Amari and things. The plural is Amari. But to me, I when I add Amari to whiskey, it makes it more nutty. I have no idea why, but one of the major notes that I get if I add like a Verna or Foro, or my two favorite brands, it will make a cocktail like a Manhattan much more nutty.
Mm. It's
Interesting.
good to know.
William just
So,
came
I
up
mean,
and stole a bunch. of
No.
flavors.
So you're going to have to make another one here soon?
Possibly. I've got a giant jug of apple cider. Although I only have, well, probably make some more. It only takes a half an ounce of that. And he gave me 2 ounces. So
Mix with other things. So
I can make more.
So we've been here for almost half an hour now, and I mean, I'm loving all of this, and it's warming me up on the inside, and it's great. But we also really wanted to talk a little bit about Bourbon Women, because I don't know, I was flipping around on YouTube, and there's a few channels that I follow, and got a message sometime in August from Whiskey Cast, because they were doing, Mark Gillespie was doing his, Friday afternoon live stream, because he started doing those regularly now through COVID. And I'm like, Bourbon Women. And then I'm like, Heather? I'm like, I know her. And there you were talking Bourbon Women. And I mean, you've been coming on the show now with us here for, a few times. And I don't know if I just never clued in or if you've never said, but you were talking about Sipposium and I'm like, okay, we need to have you on. You also, as we had alluded to, you have your Cocktail Contessa account, which I know earlier this year hit over 10,000 subscribers on Instagram. So, I mean, you've got
awesome.
a lot going on, and so we've talked a lot about cocktails. We've talked some cocktail chat. Tell us about Bourbon Women. What is it? How did you get involved? Why am I not finding a chapter?
Why are you not a member? See, I'm just wondering why you're not a member yet.
Is there a Canadian chapter of Bourbon Women?
No, but we need one. So
Start one, Theresa.
You might just have volunteered yourself, Theresa.
I might have accidentally volunteered to do something now.
Well, I'll tell you about my my journey with Bourbon Women, as it were. Bourbon Women is really an organization. It was the first consumer-based organization dedicated to women in the industry. So it was the first time we turned 10 years old this year.
Yay.
So it's a long time organization. If people want to look it up online, it's bourbonwomen.org is the website. And, it really started with a group of women who said, all of the conversation about bourbon is aimed towards men. And we know for a fact that women are drinking bourbon. We know for a fact because we're in Louisville, we're in Kentucky, and we know women are drinking bourbon across the country. And so it started with a group, I think there were maybe 8 or 10 founding members. It was founded by Peggy No Stevens. And, I joined a couple years after, I think I joined 2 or 3 years after they started the organization. And I had gone to my first event because Fred Minnick was giving a talk with his book, Whiskey Women. And it was at the Filson Club in Louisville, which is this historical building. And they do a lot of education just in general about Louisville, but also about Kentucky and things in the state. And so we went to that presentation, and my best friend and we joined on the spot. We had so much fun. You come in and you have this really nice cocktail from Joy Perini, who has since passed, but she's sort of the grandmother of all whiskey cocktails and bourbon infusions. She was doing all of this way before anybody else was. And then we had a panel, and it had Peggy No Stevens was on it. It had Fred Minnick was moderating. What was funny is Jimmy Russell was there, but Jaretta was there as well. And so Jimmy would talk, but when he would say anything just a little bit off, she would just do this. and he would immediately kind of straighten up and say exactly what he was supposed. He would get on brand basically. When he got a little bit off color, she would kind of rein him in. It was really, really cute. But at that presentation, we really found out what Bourbon Women is. I mean, it's really an organization designed to educate about bourbon and celebrate bourbon culture with women, because for a long time, women have always been drinking bourbon. We've always been there drinking it. We've always been making it, bottling it. I mean, every part of it. We just weren't talking about it. We weren't part of the conversation. So the whole idea is to get women intrigued with knowing about bourbon, learning about bourbon, and, you know, finding the coolest ways to experience bourbon with other women. Because if you have either of you been in a tasting that's all women of whiskey?
Not so much a tasting, but one of my local stores prior to COVID would always do a women's whiskey fest, and the atmosphere in the room is different than the mixed events. And it's not that, you know, like I go to the mixed events and I never feel judged and I never feel like disregarded or anything like that. Like I'm never mistreated by the gentlemen in the room. But as soon as it's all women and maybe a few gentlemen behind the tables pouring, the mood in the room is just that little bit different. And it's hard to put your finger on why, but it just is.
Yeah,
Sarah,
I've never experienced that. I've been in several tastings where I am the only woman and everybody else is men. And I'm, you know, I've had mixed reviews, unlike Theresa, where I'd get some looks or whatever. Or people would disregard what I say because I'm a woman. But I would love to be in a tasting where it's all women. And
well, I will tell you, it's magical.
I really imagine.
The thing that happens when you have a group of women tasting whiskey is it's not about the most expensive thing on your bar. It's not about the most hard to find thing you got. It's about, I've tasted this and tried it. What did you think? Have you tried it? This is my experience. What's yours? It's much more collegial. It always feels like there's much less ego involved because everybody's just so excited to be in a place where they can talk about whiskey and not be dismissed, which is a big thing. I mean, we've all been in rooms where we've asked questions and had it dismissed, and then, you know, someone else who is not our same gender has asked the question and it's been taken well in a different way.
Yeah.
And that's just the reality of how things are in a large group like that. That's the way the industry is right now. And we're working to change that. I mean, that's the whole reason for the organization, is to put women in the conversation and put that forward. And I think what is most fun to me is to be in a room full of all women or mostly women, and to see the speaker come up who is used to being in a room full of men. And not only are the women really paying attention, but they're asking difficult, very perceptive questions. And they're challenging some of the assumptions that the speaker has about women and bourbon in general. I mean, it's almost like they come up and they're like, wow, I knew women drank whiskey, but I didn't know this was possible. And it's almost like a paradigm shift for them as well.
Yeah.
Oh, so Rye Guy is asking why everything is bourbon and not whiskey. Okay, so the group itself
just
is called
name.
Bourbon Women. Yeah, so the group is called Bourbon Women, but honestly, we love all whiskey.
Don't discriminate.
Do what?
Don't discriminate when it comes to
whiskey.
whiskey.
We don't. And I will tell you, I probably half of my collection right now is rye whiskey. And I've started recently drinking a lot more scotch. So I've got peaty scotches and Speyside scotches kind of running up on it. I don't have as much access to great Canadian whiskey as you do, Theresa. But, you know,
Nobody does.
I don't discriminate. Nobody does. No, that's why I need to come up and visit you again.
Yeah.
I need that access.
Exactly. Well, and part of the whole thing with Bourbon Women, it was started by Peggy Stevens. Now, for those who maybe don't know who she is, I mean, I think both Sarah and I know who she is in a broad sense, and I think she's awesome. But
I'd love to make her acquaintance.
I would fangirl again, but
And I'm in meetings with her, and it's still amazing to hear her talk about whiskey and the things she does. You know, she's the first female master taster of bourbon. She's now in the Bourbon Hall of Fame. I think she got inducted 2 years ago. And she has really been a powerhouse in helping brands create great products and kind of building visitor experiences. Yes, no, any other questions? Exactly. Thank you, Steve.
She's kind of got a pretty famous family lineage over there too.
Yeah, so that is like she's got that connection to that whole Booker, like so that's like the Jim Beam line.
It's the no-nos. Yeah, it's the nose.
The no-nos. So she is,
yeah.
I'm staring at a Booker box right now. I mean,
exactly. And so, what I think is interesting about the names like Beam and No, they are all over the industry in Kentucky. I mean, they're big families. You have Beams at all kinds of different distilleries. You have No's at all kinds of different distilleries. It's just the name, and people get into the business. And a lot of times people don't leave because they love it. They turn out to love it. So, her impetus to create this group of women who love bourbon and love whiskey and want to share it with other women has really given rise to this series of events. At this point, we've done over 300 events. We have 12 or 13 chapters across the U.S. We have members in, I think, almost 40 states by now. We're doing a lot of virtual events right now, of course, which helps because we can draw in people who aren't close to a chapter. So, for example, we have chapters in New England and New York, DC. We have North Carolina. We have Atlanta, Tennessee, Missouri, Michigan, Indianapolis, Chicago, Colorado, California. And I know I'm forgetting at least one or two more. But so we have chapters in all these different places, and we basically connect with someone who's called a branch ambassador who runs the branch, and they work with themselves and a small team of people to create experiences like we have here, which are educational experiences that are more than just, it's not a drinking club, right? Bourbon Women is about bourbon education and bourbon culture. We're about making sure the hospitality of drinking bourbon with other people stays open to women, all women, right? And so that's really kind of what's behind sort of the floor of everything that we do, is just making sure that bourbon is accessible to everyone. And so that's why one of our big our initiatives in the last couple of years has been through our Amber Circle, which is a program where we are putting together educational experiences for women who want to be in the industry. We're, providing scholarships to women to attend something like our symposium. And our symposium, I will tell you, is the most fun bourbon event I have ever gone to. It is like a spirits conference, a girls' weekend, and a family reunion rolled into one. Because once you start going to events, it is impossible to get across the room without seeing 8 different people So, just getting across the room to get a drink might take a half an hour because there's all these people you have to talk to get, and you just want to say hi, see what they're drinking. But it just takes a while once you know some people. And it's a welcoming group. And it's a group that really has a lot of fun together. I mean, what group of women isn't going to have fun with whiskey in their hand?
Okay, exactly. So I've got a potential solution for you.
Yes.
So you need gentlemen running around in little French maid outfits, taking drink orders and serving, so that you don't have to get across the room to go get your drink.
Well, there are events where we do have people serving cocktails walking through us, but then this, going to talk to other people.
But it specifically, it has to be gentlemen in French maid outfits.
Because when you think about it, it's typically the other way around for the guys.
Yes.
And okay.
Yeah, but we don't want to enhance those kind of stereotypes, right?
It would be fun, but okay, butlers, full butler outfits with the gentleman serving. Yeah, I jest, of course.
That the men who attend also note that there's a different feel in the room, and it's a different energy. And some of them had said to me, don't let any more men come to this event than you all do already. They're like, we really like it that it's mostly women, and they like the kinds of events we put on and what we do. And I think that speaks to the caliber of the events that we produce. It's not, I keep saying this, it's not a drinking club. It's really a bourbon experience that you share with other people. And I am the ultimate super fan. I basically started about 8 years ago and went to events for a long time. And then I entered the Not Your Pink Drink contest, which is cocktail contest that we have every year. And I won it the first year. And then I entered again and I won it. And then I entered again in the third year and I won it. And then they said, hey, would you mind judging instead of entering? I said, sure.
Give somebody else a chance.
Exactly. And so after that, I was kind of creating some content for Bourbon Women, and they asked me to join the board. And then last, December, they said, hey, we would like for you to work with us to chair the board of directors. And I said, absolutely. It's my dream, right? I get to work with these, professional women who are steeped in the bourbon industry, who are just these icons of bourbon, really, in some cases. I mean, working with Peggy No Stevens and Susan Riegler, and Carla Carlton was on there for a while too. So we have some women on the board that are just amazing icons in the industry, and I get to work with them. It's just amazing. So for me, being able to do that, and then our symposium, when it started, it was just like a day and a half. And this past year, we had to skip 2020, right? Because it was in August and everything got shut down. So we did manage to have it in 2021. And we had to have it a little bit smaller than we wanted. Mm-hmm. And we sold out in 3 days.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
I think we had a total of 200 people who attended. And our waiting list was just unmanageable after a couple of weeks. And there was just no room to put other people there because the hotel needed a certain amount of space in the rooms, right? So we had to make it smaller than we wanted and smaller than people wanted to be there. But as a result of it being small, we got to do a lot of really cool things. And so, it started out, it used to be we'd attend maybe a Friday dinner and then all day Saturday classes. Well, now you get there in the morning on Friday, you have distillery tours on Friday afternoon after lunch, and then you have a keynote, and then we had a dinner. And then the next day we get up at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning and we have classes at 10 o'clock. And, you start toasting and drinking and learning about alcohol at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning until lunch. You have lunch, and then you have more distillery tours. And then you have dinners on Saturday night. And then, Sunday morning, we thought, well, we'll just have there won't be that many people. We'll just have a small breakfast. Well, people were so excited to be in person and to be together that there were some people who stayed in the breakfast room talking until almost noon. So
nice.
Wow.
It's a great networking opportunity for people in the industry, but I think it's also just for consumers. It's just straight up a fun experience.
It's interesting that you talk about how it was different, but it was almost like it created its own thing by having the constraints around COVID. There's something about, you like to think that creativity comes from endless possibilities and unlimited possibilities, but really and truly, the most creative and the most exciting things happen when you have to work within constraints. I mean, to say that necessity is the mother of invention, it really is. And the way that you get around and do things. Yes, I mean, yeah, if you have an unlimited budget, you can do whatever. But when you're that person and you're staring at the blank sheet of paper, it's like, well, I don't know where to start. But as soon as you start narrowing the focus and constraining things and saying, well, how do we do this? How do we solve this problem? And you end up with something that can be an experience that you never would have ever come to. I think about all of the virtual events that I've had a chance to attend because I didn't have to worry about getting home at the end of the night. Yeah. I didn't have to worry about, whether, I was going to be downtown and, well, I need to be, especially as a woman, I need to be a little bit more aware of my surroundings when I've been drinking.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I, like I said, I've never really felt unsafe. I live in a very safe city overall. The people that I go to events with, I trust them, but there is something to be said for being able to do it from home.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the beauty of doing things from home is you can reach more people than you could with an event in person.
Yeah.
And in the US, we have the added constraint of shipping samples across state lines, which is extremely problematic. I'll be honest. That's the biggest challenge we're still trying to work through. It's just not easy to do in a way that's legal, that's kosher, that gets everything to the right place.
Yeah.
But is that cup empty? I think you might need another one there, Sarah.
I need, yeah.
William came and took some. But I got to say, not to interrupt or anything, even as this cooled off and it's not, as warm anymore and whatnot, it still tastes good. Sometimes you have hot drinks that as they cool off, they're just not as good. This still tastes good as it cools off. Yeah. So throw that out there.
It's a great cocktail. I'm just telling you. And honestly, the riffs on it are endless. With this template, I mean, you could put pineapple liqueur in here. You could split pineapple and apple juice if you want to make it a little more tropical, and then add some coconut liqueur if you want to make sort of a in the tropics kind of tiki sort of tropical cocktail. I mean, if you just have a template on a cocktail, you can do 100 things with it.
Yeah. Well, and you change your bitters, and all of a sudden you've got a different flavor element. I actually playing with actually a distillery I used to do some work with, Wildlife. So they have a black walnut, and you were talking about a nuttiness, and so I'm like, I'm going to try black walnut bitters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but with Bourbon Women, the symposium is sort of our premier event of the year, and it's, we had people flying in from all kinds of states across the U.S. And this year, we didn't realize it, but everybody kind of came in on Thursday so they could be there bright and early on Friday. And, the whole, it was in a Hyatt, so the atrium was filled with all of these bourbon women downstairs having a good time. And you could hear the laughter. I was up on one of the 8th or 9th floor, and I could hear the laughter from the ground floor of all these women who didn't know each other. A lot of them met each other at the symposium. And it's just fun to be in a group of women exploring bourbon and whiskey together. There's something different about it that is hard to put into words, but is in some way magical.
So we had a request for, to hear about some lipstick on the show. And, because when you go to an event, you do need to, have a line on being able to get dressed up and all that kind of good stuff. So
this is a mix of Revlon, 12 Hour, and CoverGirl. And here's my cup. There is none on it.
And I use the CoverGirl Outlast as well. And again, no lipstick left behind.
There you go.
The evidence, it makes cleaning up a breeze because you don't have to clean off the.
You don't have to reapply after every drink you take, whatever.
So Friday night, my companions of the Quake Club did our first in-person whiskey event of in almost 2 years, and I got all dolled up and went out, put on my because I wear Outlast, so I put it on. It's good for 12 hours. So I'm getting done up at 7:00 at night. Well, the next morning I get up and I go upstairs because when I came home it was late. I had been drinking. I just kind of dropped things, and I knew my roommate had somebody coming over. I'm like, I should just go and make sure that I didn't leave a mess at the front door. So I go upstairs. She's sitting there watching TV, and she looks at me and says, "Did you just put on makeup so you could come upstairs?" And I'm like, "No, this is leftover from last night."
I have to scrub this off with makeup remover wipes for a good 5 minutes to get it all off. So
I find lips, if you put a regular lip balm like Lipsil or something like that, something in the oils of the lip balm, it just comes off in 20 seconds and you're good. What do you wear for lipstick, Heather?
Honestly, I don't wear it very much. I just have your regular, just plain old lipstick and maybe some lip gloss when I'm wearing. I actually couldn't find it today. We went out to an event, I think about a week and a half ago, and I think I must have put it in the second bag or something because I can't locate my lipstick. I hope I'm still an okay guest if I don't wear a lot of lipstick.
Yeah, you made us a cocktail that had lipstick in the name, so
There you go.
We're all good with that.
Another one. William's heating me up some more apple cider. As far as the base goes, does it matter which order you put the things in, or is it just all the things before the
Just all the
bitter
things before the
cider?
hot apple cider. Yeah.
Perfect. I'm just kind of putting stuff in. Thank you.
So now Cohen wants to know, does anybody make a whiskey flavored lip balm?
Oh yes, actually.
Yeah.
They make some, and I get it. I've gotten it at events. The Old Forester has had one, and Ballatin Whiskey had one, and there are a couple other ones that have whiskey. I'm a guy, but do I have butter on my lips from the popcorn steak? Probably, yes. Sorry to tell you, but yeah.
There's a CBD oil company that actually has one that's a bourbon flavored one that I've gotten, and it's pretty good.
Is it? I mean, it's never going to taste actually like bourbon. It'll taste like vanilla. It won't have the bite of bourbon because there's no alcohol in it, so it won't have that proof heat in it.
Exactly.
Adriana, I would agree. The Knob Creek Rye is one of my all-time favorites, and I've been nursing my bottle. But yeah, if somebody had a lip balm that tasted like Knob Creek Rye, I am so there.
Some pickle juice on your lips, you're good to go. Just saying.
I had somebody ask me if I was going to make a whiskey pickleback cocktail at the same class where I was demonstrating one similar to this. And I'm like, no, I don't keep pickles in the house. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not a savory drink person. So, I mean, but one of, Canada's, well, actually one of Calgary's drinks, because it was sort of invented here, is the Caesar, which has become Canada's cocktail. Unofficially, I think. I don't think it's an official thing or anything, but it's sort of like a riff on a Bloody Mary, but they use Clamato instead of just tomato juice.
Such a weird.
And traditionally, you would make it with vodka, and so there's a lot of the distilleries around that do like a dill pickle vodka or a dill pickle kind of a thing. But you can really, I mean, I've heard people who like, if you like those kinds of savory beverages, to do it with a gin, and you can just as easily sub it out, do it with whiskey. And if you added that little hit of pickle in there, if you like that kind of thing, I guess power to you. But.
Yeah. I mean, the salt in it will bring out different flavors. I mean, that's one of the benefits of using a pickle brine is the addition of the salt. It brings out different flavors. I mean, with a rye that tastes a lot like dill, you know how they have ryes that are very dill forward? That would be a good combination of, a little bit of pickle juice. Probably not a lot, but that would intrigue me. But again, I haven't done it myself yet.
So, I mean, like you think about a dirty martini, to do a pickle vodka into a dirty martini, if you like that kind of thing, would probably be good. But Manhattans. Now, a Manhattan is it traditionally made with rye?
Can be.
Manhattan?
Originally, they think it was really made with rye. It would have been, so the Manhattan came about in the 1880s from the Manhattan Club. So there's a legend that it became popular because of a political fundraiser that Winston Churchill's mother was having. But unfortunately, at the same time as this fundraiser was supposed to be happening, she was actually in England giving birth to Winston Churchill. So that's all just a big story. But it is still associated with the Manhattan Club, which is where it got the name. So in the 1880s, vermouth had started coming over probably in the 1850s or 60s. And of course, as soon as American bartenders got a hold of it, they start throwing it in cocktails because, that's what American bartenders do. Oh, let's see what that tastes like in a cocktail. And the original Manhattans were probably half and half. So they were probably 1.5 ounces whiskey and 1.5 ounces vermouth. The earlier cocktail books had that kind of ratio. And of course, bitters. So that was really, that was kind of the base of the Manhattan story. So yeah.
I always think of a Manhattan as being kind of in the same vein as an old fashioned, maybe a little bit more upscale just because it's always seems to be served in a martini glass. But for whatever reason, all of a sudden I'm like, well, if you're making it with rye, which might already kind of be leaning into some of that dill element, could you, what would it taste like if you added even just a half an ounce or a quarter ounce of a dill pickle either pickle brine or a dill pickle vodka or something like that. I wonder if there's a way to do it and make it work so that it wouldn't taste like shit.
It wouldn't throw the balance off.
There's a challenge for you. We want to talk about creative constraints. You have to make us a Manhattan that doesn't taste like crap and has dill pickles in it.
Has dill pickle brine in it.
Dill pickle
challenge
something
accepted, but let me think on that. Well, here's the thing. We're not exactly sure. If they were using rye back there, it's likely Pennsylvania rye. And I don't know that we have a good idea of what the actual flavor of that Pennsylvania rye was compared to how rye is made now. Right. So I don't know historically what vintage ryes would have tasted like. I don't know if those ryes had those dill notes that are so common now, especially with like Knob Creek. Sometimes I really get a lot of dill out of Knob Creek ryes. Yeah.
I get a lot of dill out of a lot of young ryes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
I like pickles on my sandwich.
But not in your drink.
Not in my drink.
I get it.
Nope. This is good.
I'm very wary of your cocktails now.
Yeah.
and actually, beware when you go visit Theresa.
Well, the thing is, like, I like pickles in things. I'm not really like a pickle eater. Like, I don't just eat pickles on their own.
I do.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the idea of playing. I like to mess with people's minds a little bit. Like, I like to have fun and turn kind of things on their heads a little bit. And so, the idea that you could do a cocktail with a rye that is, dill forward and adding some of that pickle in there to give it a savory element. I'm like, maybe I need some dad's hat in my life. But I mean, I've got lot 40. So, and I've got, actually I almost pulled it to the side for tonight, except we were talking Bourbon Womem. So I'm like, well, I'll leave the Canadian on the shelf. But I've got a lot 40 that was aged in ex-Isla barrels.
Ooh, how is it?
It is so weird and different. It's got like this weird mesquite smoky element to it, and I kind of love it. But
well, if we're talking about seriously about a Manhattan with the dill brine in it, you would probably want to use a dry vermouth, not a sweet, because the sweet will usually have a lot of baking spices. And I was thinking you would have to be really careful with the bitters that you chose, because you wouldn't want to choose like an orange bitters probably wouldn't work. Lemon bitters probably would. If you had like a Meyer lemon bitters would work. Some kind of heated bitters like Scrappy's has a hot spicy bitter that might work, or something that had. They have actually. I have some of those. They have some savory.
They've got a garden party one that they actually suggest using in a Bloody Mary. So that garden party might work. Or they have a charred cedar, but I don't know if that would. I don't know if cedar would really work with.
I don't know. Some people. I mean, some people. So think about it this way: some people smoke or put their salmon on cedar planks and top it with dill. So it's possible it could work, because cedar and salmon works together. Salmon works with dill. So cedar. So if you think about it in terms of flavor mapping, when I think about cocktail flavors, I do flavor mapping. So I think about, like, for example, here, if I'm going to do maple, I know maple goes with apple and apple goes with cinnamon. So maple and cinnamon go together, and you can get as wild and as crazy as you want. And you can map out all these flavors, and you just make sure that all the elements are attached to one another in some way in the flavor mapping. So, I mean, you can do that same exact process with this hypothetical dill Manhattan.
You know what? And maybe something with then a bit of a lemon, like adding a splash of lemon, or doing it with the lemon twist, because again, that whole building off of salmon dill. Okay. But
a miso wash on the vermouth. If you put so miso has an umami flavor in it, so you could do vermouth with a miso wash, maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of ways you can do it that would make it super complicated. I really like kind of making easier cocktails that people might actually make.
Yes,
Not
I
just
know
like
this is
my
going to be
crazy
something.
insane ones. Yeah.
So. Ooh, habanero bitters. Emily Chambers just mentioned she's got
Interesting.
that. Sounds like it.
They're
That could
good.
play well with some dill and spice and.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've been going for an hour. I'm cool to keep going because I'm usually cool to keep going, and I still have most of my second cocktail.
Well, what questions do you all have for me about Bourbon Women? What else can I tell you about Bourbon Women?
So, well, I guess with Symposium, because you do that pretty well every year, except for last year. But is that always in August, or is there a time that people can be watching for it? Do you have to be a club member in order to attend, or can non-members find their way in without having to know,
Yeah, so we I think 2 weeks after Symposium was over, we were already started planning for the next year. Okay, so this is something that it really does take a year to plan. And in the case of 2021, we had been planning it for 2 years because we had already had 2020 ready to go, and then everything shut down, and we just moved it, a lot of it, to 2021. And so what I would encourage you to do is to sign up for the Bourbon Women email newsletter, which you can do on the website. That will tell you, save the dates. It usually is in August. We are going to do late August again. That tends to be a great time because it's not conflicting with a lot of other events in Louisville. And we have kept it in Louisville. A couple times we had it in some other locations, but people really preferred having it in Louisville because we have so many distilleries near us and within driving distance that they could either come early or stay late and do a lot of bourbon trail exploration while they were in town. So there were some people that the Saturday before or the Sunday before Symposium, I went down to Bardstown to go to Bardstown Bourbon Company because a friend of mine who was coming in from DC was coming in early, and we're on the tour, and there's this other person like, wow, we're all wearing our masks, so this is what you can see. Right. So, so I'm like, that really person looks from like, well, it was someone else who was a branch ambassador. And so we had lunch together, and then she connected with this other person who was with me. So she had somebody to hang out with all week, and they were doing events in Louisville and tours all week. I mean, it's just,
there are no strangers. There's only friends you haven't met yet.
That is absolutely the true with a glass of bourbon in your hand. 100%. Yep. Absolutely true. Yeah. So Will's asking, how can I get my wife a membership? Yeah. Well, we are actually, that's you. If you go ahead onto our website, you can actually purchase a gift membership at bourbonwomen.org. So super easy to do. And we're actually having a push for gift memberships at the end of the year, because one of the things
it's Christmas.
It is. And so when you're a member, you get early notification of any events, and you get a discount on events. Sometimes it's $15 or $20. Sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes events are free if you're a member. So you get a lot of information about things that are coming up, and you get notified a little bit earlier about things, the dates to save, events that we're going to have in the future. Go
ahead, Sarah.
Well, I was just going to say, I was just over, poking around. I signed up for the email a while ago, but hadn't really pulled the trigger on a membership or anything yet. But I saw several different levels, I guess, of membership. And yes. I mean, is it better to be one or the other, or does it, is there?
I really encourage people just to start at the basic level and, go for the events. There are people who there are people who are interested in helping out with our Amber Circle. And so they will donate more because part of those funds go to our Amber Circle, which is part of that professional development and mentorship that we have with women. And in the last year and a half, 2 years, we've really started to push diversity and inclusion, both in our processes and in our membership, and kind of trying to broaden our reach, because Bourbon Women should be for all women. And we need to make sure that women of all types are being invited to the conversation and that are getting to speak to their experience with bourbon, and having the brands reach out to them as well. And I think that's something that's really important to us long term. And it's something that our Amber Circle is gonna help with. We do have a training program that we're gonna start probably early next year, sometime in the first couple quarters of next year, to do a leadership cohort where we bring in women to do, each year we have a different focus. So maybe the first year it's the Bourbon Steward program at Moonshine University, and maybe in the future it's marketing with bourbon, and maybe in the future it's distilling. So the idea is long term to help promote the inclusion of women in the industry in general, and to build that leadership to grow mentorship of women within the industry, and reach out to consumers as well.
So do you have to have a chapter to join up with, or can you become a member without necessarily attaching to a chapter specifically? And
So in your case, if you wanted to join, you would, because we don't currently have a Canada chapter, although you have volunteered yourself as the branch ambassador. Good job, Theresa.
I didn't realize I had done that, but apparently I have. So maybe it'll happen.
But what you do is, if you're not near a chapter, if you're not in a location with a chapter, you join the national chapter, and in the emails you get notification of events all over the U.S. And so, when I go to the website, it shows, or when I go to Bourbon Womem Eventbrite, it will just list every single event that we have for every chapter. And a virtual event you can join. Sometimes it's difficult to get the tasting kits shipped to you. We're still having issues with, you know how that is, right? Shipping around the U.S. and especially across into Canada can be extremely challenging, to say the least. But it's something we're working on. It's something I hope we can.
Shipping within Canada is actually, there are ways to do it that I think are probably easier than in the US. Mm-hmm. But I could see where that, definitely a cross border isn't really an option.
Texas, that doesn't do that shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sarah, in response to your question about, what kind of level do I join at, an individual membership, as I think $50 a year, because we wanted it to be a really approachable amount that people could, get the benefits of being a member and not feel like they were breaking the bank. Right. But, there are people who want to pay it forward. And so they include an Amber Circle donation with their membership. And there are people who are in charge of companies or corporations, and they join as a corporation. It's a corporate membership. And there are different benefits to that as well. So, it's where you are. It's where you are in your journey and kind of how you want to be involved. But, we have a Texas chapter.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking on there right now. I actually see, did you do the Judgment of Leslin? I see you got a little link on there about the Judgment of Leslin.
I did not personally attend that one. No, I had a conflict with another one on the same night, but I heard it was really fun. Actually,
it was.
There were people who were posting all kinds of pictures in the Bourbon Women members only Facebook group. So, that's another thing. We have a Bourbon Women members only Facebook group. And then we have an area of the website that's called the Speakeasy. And it's where only members can go in, and they get some special articles and, I have some recipes on there you can only get to if you're on there. So there are a number of different benefits you can get as a member. But honestly, I think the biggest benefit that you get is being in a room full of women or on a Zoom call full of women talking about whiskey. It's just a special thing.
That's awesome. While we take a quick pause here, I want to pull up Treb's post here to remind everybody to raise a glass for Sherry G. She was somebody that was in a lot of the Whiskey Tube chats. She was just all over. Good people, passed away. So go ahead and cheers to her. Thoughts to her family and everything. Not trying to be a downer or anything, but that needs to be said, in my opinion.
Absolutely. So, cheers to her.
Cheers indeed. Lost a good friend there. So
yeah. And I know, because we are getting just past an hour here, and I know we're losing a few people out of the chat. So kind of looking forward to December. We haven't really talked so much about that because it does really hit through that Christmas season. I've got a feeling we might end up deferring to January, or we might just make it a casual kind of a thing that, maybe we'll show up on Boxing Day and, just kind of randomly drink a couple of things for 20 minutes or,
I mean, we typically do the
see.
last Sunday of the month, and the last Sunday of the month is the day after Christmas. So that might be a little rough. I'm honestly open the rest of that week, Theresa, because I have from the 24th through the 3rd off. So we'll figure something out. If we just want to have an after Christmas hangout, whatever.
Yeah.
Or if we want to, see about getting somebody on, that's cool too. Got a month to figure it out.
Yeah. So stay tuned. Watch our stuff, and we'll tell you if we're doing it or not.
Yeah, we post stuff. We don't have a dedicated Discord or Instagram for whiskey and lipstick, but I do post stuff over on the Whiskey Crusaders. Theresa posts stuff on her Canadian Whiskey Smith on Instagram and Facebook. So, you can always find the information. And then over on Discord, Donald just dropped the link for our YouTube for Whiskey Crusaders. So stuff will be posted under that Discord and that Instagram for us. And Cohen did remind us that America don't celebrate Boxing Day.
Yeah, well,
so
whatever. We get an extra stat. You don't.
You all get a lot more days off than we do. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I think we do in general, but yeah.
And then Donald just dropped Theresa's Facebook. She does also have an Instagram, Canadian Whiskey Smith, the same. I'm assuming we're wrapping up.
I think we're kind of heading in that direction. We'll stay on, probably keep chit-chatting a little bit.
You can find Heather's Instagram information as well. Cocktail Contessa.
It's cocktailcontessa.com, and it's cocktail_Contessa on Instagram.
Yeah. And post that on in there. I follow you on Instagram, and I see all the fun stuff that you're posting, drinks and stuff. And I wish I had more liqueurs in the house to try different stuff, but it's just as you can see, they go down faster, and I go down faster.
You have to pace yourself.
That said, though, this is only my second cocktail. Now, granted, there was 1.5 ounces in the first one and probably closer to 2 ounces in the second one. So I'm about on par with where I would be if I was drinking straight. But
so you're adding more as you go?
Well, I generally do about 3 pours an hour, 3 to 4 pours an hour when we're drinking on the stream. And usually, maybe they're only 1/2 ounce pours, but 2 cocktails, 4 drinks, it's all the same.
It's not the same.
It's almost the same.
And Donald, we've got the website, we've got the Instagram. And if you guys want to post, go ahead and post the bourbonwomens.org.
.org. Yep.
For any ladies out there that are interested in even just getting the newsletter that they get in the email, if you're thinking about it, whatever.
Oh, I need to tell you all about my book. Did I tell you I have a book?
I was going to ask you. I'm like, I don't know if we're talking about that yet or not.
I was going through the proofs this afternoon. I had to turn in edits on the proof this afternoon. But it's a book called Bourbon is My Comfort Food, and it's all about bourbon cocktails. And it's really designed for people who are either bourbon enthusiasts or, just getting into bourbon and are cocktail enthusiasts. It really talks all about, the basics of bourbon, how to build out a bourbon bar for doing mixology. And then it goes through all the main templates of basic whiskey cocktails, what the elements are, and then how to start thinking about tweaking those to make your own cocktails. So, there are a lot of cocktails in there, but it's also about how to think about cocktails, because I personally think that whiskey drinkers are uniquely primed to be great evaluators of cocktails, because you all know what aroma is. You know how to know something.
Mm-hmm.
You know what mouthfeel is. You know when something's creamy, when something's oily, when something has a bite. You're used to evaluating the things that you drink in terms of smell and taste and finish, which is exactly what you need to do and balance when you're evaluating a cocktail. And so cocktails are the gateway to bourbon, right? A lot of people don't start with a neat glass of bourbon in their hand, right? They start with cocktail. And so learning how to make cocktails can really open up the door to bourbon for people who aren't necessarily into it. It's how I got several family members and friends into it. And I think it's a worthy challenge to those of us who wish there were more people in our bourbon circle, because we know they could love it just as much as we do.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's really, it's a book that also has a lot about bourbon women in it. I'm doing it with our Not Your Pink Drink award winners are in there. It's part of our celebration of 10 years as well, the publication of the book. So, the subtitle is The Bourbon Women Guide to Fantastic Cocktails at Home. So it is all about cocktails, and specifically bourbon cocktails.
And when is that likely to, hit the places that people can actually buy it?
May 3rd is the release. It's already on Amazon, available for pre-order.
Oh.
And so if you look up Bourbon is My Comfort Food, that will come up on Amazon.
So let me see. When's the last Sunday in April of next year? Because I kind of feel like maybe we should book you if we can, or we can look at
last Saturday,
last Sunday.
Last Sunday. You guys are on Sunday? Okay.
We are on Sunday.
24th.
So it's the 24th. So I don't know if we could do that, or maybe we look at doing May the 29th, but I think we should look at trying to have you on specifically for sort of a book launch kind of a thing. If you're down for it, we'll totally help you launch that, because friend of the channel, we love having you. So I think because Sarra, you were never a cocktail person until we had Heather on.
Nope. No.
See, I work both ways. I talk whiskey people into cocktails, and I talk cocktail people into whiskey. Either way.
The closest thing that I came to a cocktail before this was when I used to drink rum and cokes. Okay.
This is way better than a rum and coke.
Yeah. And I mean, it's still not the first thing that I go for, but like this, I'm going to share this with as many people as I can. As a matter of fact, the next time that I'm over at my parents' house, I'm going to make sure that I have the ingredients to bring over there, because I really think my mom would enjoy this a lot. So,
you could do?
Yeah.
You could actually make it in an empty 750 or 175. And just take it over there and have it for them to heat up. So you could just heat up a mug at a time and have it pre-mixed.
That's a good idea. How long do you think it would last?
Well, you're heating it up. Lemon juice doesn't usually last for super long in cocktails, but you're heating it up. But if you use, I'm not a proponent of using the little things of lemon juice that you have, but that will keep longer in a cocktail than fresh lemon juice.
So if I were to make it up and put it in, have them keep it in the fridge and heat
That's
it
a couple
up.
weeks, probably.
Weeks.
Yeah, I was gonna say usually 2 weeks is sort of your time frame on things like simple syrups and such. Mine just stay in the fridge, and
maple syrup usually lives in the fridge. Maple syrup, bitters, lemon juice.
The lemon juice is really the factor. If you use fresh lemon juice, it can turn really bitter. But number one, there's not that much lemon juice in it.
Right.
And number two, if you're going to use the canned stuff, even though I'm not a proponent of it, it does last longer when you batch something. It does, yeah. Or if you can get the fresh pressed, cold pasteurized, like Natalie's makes, some juices that will keep longer and they're refrigerated, so that would work. Anything like that.
Excellent. I also want to say that the last little bits of this with the nutmeg on top and the last remainder of the whipped cream is like the best part. The last swig of the
ice cream.
Yeah.
Everything is more concentrated at the bottom of the glass.
Well, and you get more of that nutmeg if you put the nutmeg on top. You get more of it because the whipped cream just still kind of sits on the top for the most part. Yeah, good stuff.
It
I
is
like
good
it.
stuff. Well, thank you guys for having me on. I've had a great time talking to you guys and talking about
Yes,
Bourbon Women.
always.
But yeah,
Always.
So much
but yeah,
for being
I'm
on.
excited about the book and all the events coming up with it, and it you know, the proof, it looks gorgeous. They really did a great job laying it out, and it's got tons of my photography in it. I think they were kind of happy that I was going to provide most of the photography because they didn't have to hire somebody to do it. I'm like, here, I have photos. Do you want these? Yes, please.
Yes,
All
definitely.
right.
Thank you so much again. We look forward to the book. We look forward to having you on again. I look forward to sharing this drink as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you to everybody who has tuned in tonight. You can catch me on the Whiskey Crusaders tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Central. I have no idea what we're doing, but I have the liquors, the alcohol over there. We got the samples, but I don't know what we're doing yet. Drinking. So come hang out with us then. And until next time, cheers.
Yeah.
Right.
Cheers.
Thank you,
Keep
everybody.
drinking.
Cheers.
And fucking ray of sunshine.
Backwards.